Nicolás Maduro, the man who ruled Venezuela for over a decade, is now sitting in a federal jail cell in Lower Manhattan following a lightning-fast U.S. military operation that has stunned the world. Shocking bystander video from Caracas shows the moment elite American forces descended on the Miraflores Palace, capturing Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, in the dead of night. This unprecedented military incursion marks the first time a sitting head of state has been forcibly removed by U.S. forces and brought to American soil since Manuel Noriega in 1989. The former Venezuelan president appeared before a federal judge on January 6, 2026, facing heavy charges of narcoterrorism and drug trafficking that could see him spend the rest of his life behind bars. Cilia Flores, the former First Lady of Venezuela, also appeared in court, her face reflecting the sudden and violent shift in her family's fortunes as the Trump administration executes its maximum pressure doctrine. The timeline of this operation, dubbed Operation Libertad, began months ago with secret planning, culminating in a weekend strike that caught the Venezuelan military completely off guard. By Sunday evening, Maduro was on a C-17 transport plane headed for New York, while Caracas descended into a mixture of celebratory protests and chaotic clashes between rival factions. In Manhattan, security is at an all-time high. The Metropolitan Detention Center is surrounded by federal marshals as legal teams prepare for what is being called the trial of the century. But as the smoke clears in Venezuela, the White House has opened a new front in its global strategy, signaling an aggressive move to acquire or exert control over Greenland. This pivot has triggered a historic rift with NATO allies, who view the move as an affront to Danish sovereignty and a violation of the international order that has stood since World War II. At an emergency meeting in New York, French officials were vocal in their condemnation, calling the Caracas raid and the Greenland signals a dangerous return to unilateral interventionism. President Trump has remained defiant, suggesting that other nations may face similar correction if they continue to facilitate drug flow or threaten American interests in the Western Hemisphere. Geopolitical analysts warn that the Greenland gap is no longer just a strategic concern for the Arctic, but a flashpoint that could dismantle the very foundations of the Atlantic Alliance. While the world watches the high-stakes games of kings and presidents, a domestic crisis is boiling over in Minneapolis following a fatal shooting involving ICE agents. The FBI has now taken sole control of the investigation, a move that has sidelined local police and further fueled the distrust of a community already on edge. Raw eyewitness footage from the scene shows the moment federal agents opened fire, leading to the death of a local man whose identity has sparked nationwide protests. The victim has been identified as 28-year-old Marco Torres, a father of three who was reportedly caught in the crossfire during a botched enforcement operation in a residential neighborhood. Local leaders in Minneapolis are demanding transparency, but the FBI's sole control status means that most evidence, including body camera footage, is now classified under national security protocols. Legal experts at the University of Chicago are questioning the legality of the Venezuelan operation, suggesting that the removal of Maduro sets a precedent that could be used against any sovereign leader. Professor Elena Rodriguez, a scholar of international law, warns that bypassing the UN Security Council to arrest a head of state could lead to a lawless international era. Inside Venezuela, the vacuum left by Maduro is being filled by a transitional council, but reports of internal purges and military defections suggest the transition will be anything but peaceful. The U.S. State Department has already begun the process of recognizing a new interim government, even as Russia and China maintain their support for Maduro's remaining loyalists. In Manhattan, the courtroom has become a theater of history. Maduro's defense team argues that as a head of state, he possesses sovereign immunity that the U.S. has no right to violate. Federal prosecutors, however, have produced thousands of pages of evidence linking Maduro to the Cartel of the Suns, an organization they say flooded American streets with cocaine. The tension between the White House and NATO has reached a fever pitch, with Denmark flatly stating that Greenland is not for sale, echoing the diplomatic spat of years past. As the FBI continues its lockdown of the Minneapolis investigation, the streets of the Twin Cities remain occupied by National Guard troops, a grim reminder of the volatility at home. The world is now waiting to see if this aggressive shift in foreign and domestic policy will stabilize the region or ignite a broader conflict that could redraw the map of the 21st century. From the courtrooms of Manhattan to the frozen coasts of the Arctic, the stakes have never been higher for the United States and its standing in the global community.